The Prime Minister has already made it clear. Canada won't accept a bad deal. Despite mounting pressure and the concessions made so far, border measures, counter-tariffs, Ottawa isn't backing down. But keep an eye on the Arctic. We may soon see major budget commitments directed specifically northward. Canada's first major infrastructure push in the Arctic could be on the horizon. While the world watches Washington's flurry of trade deals, something quieter, but far more strategic, is unfolding in Canada. As President Trump courts new trade partners in Asia, Canada is turning north, investing in the Arctic, building economic resilience, and forging powerful alliances with indigenous communities. This isn't just policy. It's a strategic reset. Let's break down how Trump sidelined Canada, and how Canada is now pushing back. Since returning to office, President Trump has taken a purely transactional approach to global trade. Just in July, he announced new deals or frameworks with Japan, the Philippines, Indonesia, and the United Kingdom. Quick, flashy, tariff-slashing agreements, some cutting duties to just 10 or 15%. But Canada, left out. Despite being America's largest export market and closest ally, Canada wasn't invited. Trump's reasoning: Canada already has a deal, see USMA, formerly USMCA. According to US officials, that deal included enough carve-outs. So Canada shouldn't expect more. In fact, the reverse is happening. On March 4th, Trump imposed 25% tariffs on most Canadian goods. By June, steel and aluminum tariffs had risen to 50%. And now, a sweeping 35% tariff looms, effective August 1st, unless Canada agrees to more US market access. Washington calls it reciprocal. In Ottawa, it feels like punishment. But Canada is taking a broader view, economically and strategically. The Arctic isn't just about development. It's about defense, strategic bases, dual-use infrastructure, and indigenous communities ready to partner. Yes, Canada has responded with counter-tariffs, re-industrialization, and even a quiet consumer boycott of American goods. But its most strategic move, the one few are talking about, the Arctic. Under Prime Minister Mark Carney, Canada has launched a sweeping northern strategy rooted in indigenous partnerships, sovereignty, and long-term infrastructure. In July, Parliament passed Bill C-5, fast-tracking development in Inuit regions. But what's unique isn't just the scale of investment. It's who's leading it. Canada has appointed its first Arctic ambassador from the Inuit community, opened new consulates in Anchorage and Greenland, and committed over $6 billion Canadian to radar systems, transport corridors, and energy infrastructure. These aren't top-down mandates. They're indigenous-led initiatives that build trust and lasting capacity. And it's not just domestic. It's a message to Washington. Canada is positioning itself as the democratic anchor in an Arctic increasingly shaped by Russia's militarization and China's resource grabs. And that message? It's hitting where it matters: minerals. The Arctic holds vast reserves of lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements, critical for electric vehicles, semiconductors, and advanced defense systems. As of 2024, the US still imports over 90% of its rare earth minerals from China. But Canada's new Indigenous First strategy ensures Arctic supply chains won't be dictated by foreign pressure. Any US access will require cooperation, trust, and respect for Indigenous governance. Trump may have thought tariffs were his trump card. But he may have miscalculated. While the White House focuses on short-term wins, Canada is securing long-term leverage, in territory, in minerals, and in alliances. Canada isn't waiting for a seat at the table. It's building its own. Meanwhile, Europe is also reaching its breaking point. Just weeks ago, the US and the European Union were on the verge of a deal. A 10% tariff ceiling, modest but meaningful. Then, everything changed. Trump raised the demand, 15%, then 30%. It wasn't a negotiation. It was coercion. The EU walked. Now, Brussels is preparing one of the largest retaliation packages in decades, up to €72 billion in tariffs, targeting luxury goods, beef, soybeans, aircraft parts, and cloud computing infrastructure. But this isn't just about money. It's about deterrence. Legal, systemic, and targeted. In Canada, the urgency is just as real. In Moscow, Prime Minister Carney has called an emergency summit with all provincial premiers. The goal? 2 tracks. First, negotiate a narrow, sector-specific deal before the August 1st deadline. Second, prepare for a post-deadline world, one shaped by a 35% tariff wall. Canada's response has been swift. A 25% tariff on American automobiles, tearing down internal trade barriers, pivoting away from the US, dropping export reliance from 78% to 68%, and diversifying toward Europe and Asia. And here's what most Americans don't realize. Canada is the US's #1 export market. Europe is #2. Together, they account for more than $750 billion in US trade. And it's not one-sided. Canada supplies uranium, critical minerals, and energy inputs that fuel everything from AI servers to defense grids. The EU delivers key pharmaceuticals and manufacturing components. If Trump continues down this path, he risks unraveling the very supply chains America depends on. Markets are already feeling the shock. Bloomberg reports 2 consecutive months of falling US import volumes, one of the sharpest drops in decades. And according to the Yale Budget Lab, US tariff rates are now the highest they've been since 1910. Trump may control the headlines. But consequences don't care about headlines. If Canada and the EU strike back in unison, the pain won't stay overseas. It will hit ports, factories, grocery shelves, and the pocketbooks of American families. Trump may think he holds the cards. But Canada has one powerful card it hasn't played yet: energy. And that's silence. It speaks volumes. So far, energy, Canada's most vital export to the US, has remained untouched. No threats, no press conferences, no leaks. Why? Because it's too valuable to risk, on both sides. The US imports 95% of its uranium. Canada is its top secure supplier. That uranium powers the reactors fueling America's clean energy and AI infrastructure. But if Ottawa plays the energy card too early, Washington might demand more access to telecom, banking, and agriculture. So, for now, both sides are keeping energy just beneath the table. But make no mistake, provinces are preparing. In New Brunswick, Premier Susan Holt is championing the Eastern Energy Partnership, an integrated grid of LNG, nuclear, and wind. St. John's Port is being modernized. Saskatchewan is becoming a uranium hub. Ontario is aligning EV supply chains with domestic power sources. This isn't noise. It's a message. If energy enters the equation, Canada will negotiate on its own terms. With Carney meeting provincial leaders in Huntsville this week, pressure is building. A partial deal is the most likely outcome. Tariffs on some sectors, energy left untouched. Not a concession. A calculation. And if August 1st comes without a deal, energy will move from quiet leverage to active retaliation, through export routes, pricing, and policy. Because in trade, the strongest card is often the one you never show.